So, what do you think are some of the top things that cause a lack of connection that is learned from childhood that does go over into adulthood?
Well, I think there's a few things. So if you have some unresolved childhood experiences, they don't even have to be traumatic. They could be you grew up with a dad who yelled a lot and was really forceful, or a mom who was sad a lot, or really uninvested, or parents that were working all the time and not really meeting, your needs. Whatever it is, it can be really traumatic. It can just be kind of a poor experience growing up. That kind of stuff, those childhood experiences, the trauma shape how we respond to stress, how we respond to conflict, and how we respond to our kids in parenting, right? If we experience neglect, fear, abandonment, we might unconsciously project those fears onto our kids and definitely onto our spouse by either being overprotective and not ever wanting, putting that bubble around them and not ever wanting them to do hard things or make mistakes or do risky things, right? Or we become super distant and kind of withdrawn and just sort of let the kids have full reign and control of the house. Um, when we might also sometimes we also react to certain situations, whether that's again between with our relationship with our spouse or our kids. Sometimes we'll like overreact. We have these heightened, like we put a lot of emotion into behavior challenges, struggles, or problems or stressful situations. And so we tend to often stick in that back part of our brain in that fight or flight mode anytime we feel triggered, right? By either our child's misbehavior or maybe an argument or something that we've had with our spouse, which that obviously causes a lot of tension in the family. The other thing is, if you've experienced any kind of trauma or tough experiences growing up, with your parents and how you were parented or your experiences, often you are more, this is something to pay attention to, you have more like a heightened sensitivity to criticism.
Yeah.
And often that comes with, again, like I said, that early life, just depending on how, if you felt the sense of worth, belonging, how your self-esteem was, you might, you might be overly emotional and feel attacked by your spouse or your child when they're upset with you about something, or they're frustrated with you or disappointed in you. And they may not even intend to, or they might even think it's that big of a deal.
Right. Because, however you've been raised and how your parents did, that's your normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't know what you don't know
Yeah.
till one day, suddenly, years later, you figure it out. You don't know what you don't know until you don't know it. But
Well,
how about that person who does just close down and they don't talk about it? Do you kind of think that they really want to get your attention? Do you think they really want you to ask questions? They want you to be there for them? Or do you think they just are not going to share?
Well, I think a lot of times, again, those early life experiences can make us feel like we don't want to deal with conflict. We don't want to deal with anything negative. We internalize that it's our problem or our fault or somebody's out to get us. But I think it's more about being unsure of ourselves, not confident, not feeling empowered, not feeling capable, that we have value and that we can help the situation. Also, oftentimes we'll just kind of shut down. And or you can do the opposite. You
That's what
may
I was going to
want
say.
to,
Yeah.
and both of these things come from parenting from a place of fear. My life didn't go so great growing up, and I want to try to prevent that. I worry about that in my child. And so we either micromanage the kids, and we tell them to jump and how high, we give them, we do anything and everything for them. Or we kind of shut down and disconnect and separate from them and just sort of give in all the time and just want to keep the peace. Either way, we're controlling pretty much every situation by avoiding the triggering, painful things that, come up for us from
Well, I
our
was
own
going to
past.
say, definitely some of us internalize. I am one. I internalize everything and analyze and try to figure out what I did wrong. But the opposite of that is the person who does not do that at all. And instead of internalizing and thinking, well, what can I do to change the situation? How can I help? That person says, it's your fault.
And they do the blame game, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
again, that's a way of controlling things. You're
Mm.
like deflecting it and saying, it's not me, it's not me. I haven't done anything wrong. And admitting your own faults is like something that feels super vulnerable to you. And it means it's a sign of weakness. And so you're definitely not going to do that, right? Because all your life you've had to protect yourself. You felt like you had to protect yourself from the tough things going on around you. And so now if you become vulnerable with somebody and you actually share what's happening with you and what you're feeling, it's like, oh no, that's a sign of weakness. I'm not going there. I'm gonna get hurt. And that again goes back to that first year of life bonding cycle in many cases.
Well, when it comes to marriage, personality styles, the behavior styles that I teach really do come to play in that. That some people are naturally fearful, some people are naturally short on patience, and anger is the first thing they go to. Some
Mhm.
people kind of step away, and like you said, they don't want any conflict. They don't want to. They don't talk about their feelings so much. And according to our personality style, definitely is how we deal with things. But honest to goodness, our values, our parents, gave us, not by telling us, but how they lived and what they did and what they actually said. There's people out there where they are one way when they are in public. It's a
Mhm.
scary thing. They're one way in public. They might be charming and wonderful. And then when they come in, they've they unload on their family.